everyone, welcome back. Ready to go deep on a topic that's both fascinating and kind of unsettling.
Absolutely. This one's a doozy, but it's important stuff.
Yeah, today we're really going to deep dive into the state of American health,
Mm.
specifically this whole chronic disease epidemic.
Yeah.
And we're going beyond the numbers, like really exploring if there are systemic issues at play.
Yeah.
So the basis for our deep dive today is this conversation between Joe Rogan,
Yep.
health policy expert Callie Means, and surgeon Dr. Casey Means.
Mm-hmm.
Buckle up, because they cover a lot,
You do.
but we'll distill it down to the most important stuff.
You know what I find really interesting about this conversation? Is that they don't hold back
Yeah.
on challenging conventional wisdom. I mean, they go there, talking about everything from processed food
Mm-hmm.
to how certain industries might be influencing healthcare institutions.
Okay, so let's start with the reality check, right?
Yep.
Dr. Casey Means, in this conversation, right off the bat, she lays out some pretty shocking statistics
All right.
about chronic illnesses in America. I
Mhm.
mean, obesity, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer. It's a long list.
Right.
And the scary part is how fast these trends have been increasing, especially in recent decades.
It really is. I mean, think about it. In 1958, only 1% of Americans had type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
Now it's like half the adult population.
It's mind-boggling. And it's not just diabetes, right? We're seeing this pattern
Mhm.
with Alzheimer's, with cancer, autoimmune diseases, infertility. It really is a crisis. And what's interesting is Dr. Means, in this conversation, she actually shares her own story, right? Of this
Yeah.
kind of disillusionment as a surgeon, realizing she was treating symptoms but not really getting to the root cause.
Yeah, it's like fixing a flat tire
Yeah.
over and over and over
Mm-hmm.
without ever actually looking to see why you keep getting flat tires.
Yeah, it's addressing the symptom but not the underlying problem.
Right, and that's where this whole idea of metabolic dysfunction comes into play.
Yeah, and they really highlight that in this conversation, right?
Yeah, both Callie and Dr. Casey Means,
Mm-hmm.
they argue that that's the common thread
Yeah.
that links all these seemingly different diseases.
So, okay, for those of us who haven't been to med school, what exactly does metabolic dysfunction mean? Break it down for us.
So think of it this way. It's basically like a breakdown in your core cellular processes.
Okay.
Like, you know how a car engine starts sputtering
Yeah.
when it's not getting the right fuel or maintenance?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that. It leads to you having less energy
Mm-hmm.
and just a cascade of negative effects all over your body.
It's bigger than just, a number on the scale.
Totally.
It's about how our bodies are actually working at a fundamental level.
Exactly. And you know what? This dysfunction, it can manifest in ways that a lot of people listening are probably experiencing right now.
Oh, really?
Things like brain fog, fatigue,
Yep.
struggling to lose weight,
Mm-hmm.
Those can actually be signs that there's something deeper going on.
That's a good point, yeah. I think we've all felt that. Like, why am I so tired all the time?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Callie Means, he suggests this rise in chronic disease coincides with something else.
Yes.
The rise of ultra-processed foods.
It's like he drops this bombshell. He's like, okay, after smoking rates went down,
Yeah.
the tobacco industry, they needed a new market.
Right.
So they took all their expertise
Mm.
in basically engineering addictive products, and guess what?
Oh, you know.
They applied it to the food industry.
So the same tactics used to get people hooked on cigarettes are now in our food.
That's what he argues.
That's a little unsettling.
Yeah, and to add to that, he brings up this crazy statistic.
Okay.
67% of the average American's calories come from these ultra-processed foods.
Wow, 67%. So that's like 2 out of every 3 bites
Yeah.
of food we eat.
Pretty much.
No wonder. It's not just the food itself, though, right?
Right.
What about all those chemicals and toxins in our environment?
Yeah, that's another layer to this whole mess.
Okay.
Dr. Means, she talks about all these unregulated chemicals in our food.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking pesticides, herbicides, all these additives with long, complicated names
Right,
that
yeah.
nobody can pronounce.
Exactly.
And she's linking these to a whole bunch of health problems, including things that mess with our metabolic function.
So we're like bombarded with unhealthy food
Mm-hmm.
and then exposed to potentially harmful chemicals on top of it.
Yeah, it can feel kind of overwhelming.
It does. So do they offer any solutions in this conversation?
They do. Thankfully, they don't just leave us with all the doom and gloom.
Okay, good.
Both Callie and Dr. Casey Means, they suggest that, yeah, we can't totally control our environment,
Mm-hmm.
but we can definitely be more mindful about what we choose to eat.
Okay.
And they also suggest pushing for stricter regulations on all these food additives
You're right.
and demanding more transparency from these companies.
So being informed, making conscious choices, and then pushing for change on a larger scale. I like that. Okay, but then they take it a step further.
They do.
Callie and Dr. Casey Means actually suggest there's a potentially even bigger systemic issue happening here.
Yeah, they argue that these powerful industries like big food and big pharma could be influencing healthcare institutions.
Hold on, are we going down a conspiracy theory rabbit hole here?
Not really. I mean, they bring up some pretty compelling evidence of conflicts of interest at every level. We're talking the FDA, the NIH,
Wow.
even medical schools, and these professional organizations.
So they're suggesting that these organizations, the ones that we trust to protect our health, might actually be influenced by the industries that benefit from us being sick.
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow, but they make a strong case.
That's pretty disturbing.
They even talk about this thing called the Flexner Report from way back in 1909, which they say kind of set the stage for prioritizing pharmaceutical interventions
Oh, wow.
over more holistic approaches to healthcare.
So the system's kind of set up to treat diseases instead of preventing them.
That's what they argue. They
Yeah.
point out that the current healthcare system often focuses on volume over outcomes. Like, it's about seeing as many patients as possible,
Right.
not necessarily making sure those patients actually get better.
Which makes sense because that would take a lot more time
Right.
and money and resources.
And it could even discourage doctors who
Yes.
do want to talk about preventative stuff like diet and exercise.
That's crazy. It's like they're penalized for trying to keep people healthy.
Yeah.
So if these industries have such a strong grip on the system, is there anything we can even do?
Well, that's what we'll dive into in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll unpack some of the solutions that Callie and Dr. Casey Means suggest, both for us as individuals and for pushing for change on a bigger level.
So we've talked about some pretty heavy stuff about how our food system, how our healthcare system might be playing a part in all these chronic diseases, but it can feel kind of abstract, right? Yeah.
Like, how does this actually affect me?
That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the big picture.
Right.
So let's bring it down to earth a little bit. Remember those crazy numbers Dr. Casey Means talked about?
Yeah.
Like 74% of Americans being overweight or obese, and 50% having type 2 diabetes or prediabetes.
Yeah.
Think about your own friends and family. Chances are a lot of them are dealing with these exact same things.
It's true. And it's not just adults either.
Right.
Dr. Means, she pointed out that young adult dementia has tripled since 2012.
Wow.
And childhood obesity is at an all-time high.
It's heartbreaking to think about.
Yeah.
And Callie Means, he argues that this all points to a decline in, American vigor, this loss of vitality that's connected to our metabolic health.
So it's not just individual health issues. It's like the health and resilience of our whole society is declining.
Yeah, it's pretty sobering thought.
Yeah, it is. And they also suggest that the feminization of our society, especially with all these endocrine disrupting chemicals.
Yeah, that sounds scary.
They are, a little bit.
What are those exactly?
So basically, they're chemicals that mess with your hormones.
Okay.
Think of it like this. Your hormones are like messengers, sending signals throughout your body.
Okay, yeah.
Endocrine disruptors, they either block those messages or deliver the wrong message entirely.
Oh, wow.
And they mess with your body's natural processes.
And that can lead to a bunch of different problems, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, Callie Means suggests that these chemicals could be contributing to early puberty in girls, erectile dysfunction in young men, all sorts of things.
Wow, that's pretty heavy stuff.
It's definitely a controversial topic, but it's something to think about.
Definitely. Okay, so we've established metabolic dysfunction is at the root of a lot of these chronic diseases.
Yeah.
We've talked about how ultra-processed foods and environmental toxins contribute to that.
Yeah.
But how does the capture of healthcare institutions that they talk about, how does that fit into all of this?
So they argue that big food and big pharma, their influence has basically created this system that puts profits ahead of patients.
Meaning, what does that actually look like?
Well, for example, they bring up this crazy fact that 80% of medical schools in the U.S. don't even require a single course on nutrition.
Really?
I know, it's kind of mind-blowing.
So doctors are trained to treat diseases with drugs and surgery, but they're not even taught how food impacts our health.
Exactly.
That's wild.
Even Dr. Casey Means admits that she had to learn about nutrition on her own time.
after med school.
after medical school and surgical residency.
That's like going to a mechanic who only knows how to change your oil but doesn't know how to check your engine.
Exactly. You could be driving around with a major problem and not even realize it.
Right. Okay, so it's not about blaming doctors. It's about the system they're working within, right?
Exactly.
Mm.
And Callie Means, he really emphasizes that. He's like, look, a lot of doctors are great. They really want to help their patients.
Yeah.
But the system's just not set up to support that.
Yeah, they're often pressured to see tons of patients every day.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of time to really talk about lifestyle changes.
Right. And if the DO tried to talk about preventative stuff, they risk being ridiculed or even penalized by the medical establishment.
That's crazy.
Dr. Casey Means even shares her own story about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she said she got pushback from other doctors for advocating for things like getting sunlight and eating a healthy diet.
That's so backwards.
It really is.
Okay, so this goes back to the whole capture idea, right?
Yeah.
They're basically saying that industry influence has shaped not just medical education, but also the research that guides the whole system.
Right. So the very knowledge that doctors are working with could be biased.
That's unsettling. Did they give any examples of this?
Yeah, they talk about the American Diabetes Association, which sets the guidelines for diabetes care.
Okay.
Guess who funds them?
I don't know who.
Coca-Cola and Cadbury.
Hold on. The organization that's supposed to be helping doctors treat diabetes is taking money from companies that sell sugary drinks.
Yep.
That seems like a huge conflict of interest.
It really does. And they bring up similar issues with other organizations,
Yeah.
like the American Academy of Pediatrics, which now recommends considering weight loss drugs like Ozempic
Yeah.
for kids as young as 12.
Wow. That just seems so extreme.
It is.
And we're not really addressing the root causes here.
Right, and that's their whole point. We've been conditioned to accept this medicalized approach to health,
Yeah.
even when it's not working.
Right. We're told chronic diseases are just inevitable,
Yeah.
and we need pills and procedures to manage them.
Right, and Callie and Dr. Casey Means are pushing back against that narrative.
Okay.
They're saying we have the power to reverse these trends by focusing on lifestyle factors.
So taking control of our health. Okay, I like it. So let's talk solutions. What do they actually suggest we do?
They have this multi-pronged approach that involves both taking individual action
Okay.
and pushing for systemic change.
Makes sense. Let's start with individual action. Like, what can we do right now to take control of our health?
First and foremost, they say you got to empower yourself with knowledge.
Okay.
Question what you've been told about health, do your own research, and find healthcare providers who align with your values.
So don't just blindly trust everything you hear.
Exactly.
Be an informed consumer.
Right. And they also emphasize lifestyle interventions like Dr. Casey Means. She's a big proponent of getting at least 7,000 steps a day.
Just walking.
Yeah, she says even that small change can significantly reduce your risk of all sorts of chronic diseases.
Interesting. So those little steps really do add up.
They do. They also talk about sleep, getting enough sunlight, managing stress, all those things that conventional medicine often overlooks.
It's about taking a holistic approach, not just focusing on isolated symptoms. Okay, but how do we actually navigate the current healthcare system to make those lifestyle changes?
Well, remember those letters of medical necessity we talked about?
Yeah, the ones that can help you get insurance coverage for things like gym memberships.
Right. They encourage people to request those from their doctors.
Okay, that's a good tip.
They also talk about using HSA and FSA accounts to invest in your health.
Oh, yeah, those tax-advantaged accounts.
A lot of people don't realize you can use those for all sorts of preventative stuff, like continuous glucose monitors.
Interesting. So you can use those to track your own data.
Exactly.
That's cool. Okay, so that's individual action, but what about those bigger systemic issues?
Yeah, so they're big proponents of overhauling our food and agriculture policies.
So getting to the root of the problem.
Exactly.
They're talking about reforming the Farm Bill, right?
Yep. Shifting subsidies away from commodity crops and toward regenerative agriculture.
Regenerative agriculture. I've heard that term, but explain it to me like I'm 5.
Basically, it's a way of farming that focuses on soil health, biodiversity, and sequestering carbon.
So it's not just about growing food, it's about restoring the whole ecosystem?
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
And they argue that that would not only improve the quality of our food,
Yeah.
but also help the environment and make our farms more resilient.
Okay, but how do we actually get from where we are now to this regenerative system?
They admit it's a complex issue, but they emphasize that change is definitely possible
Okay.
with strong leadership and, public demand.
So making our voices heard.
Yeah, contacting our representatives, demanding policies that prioritize our health,
Okay, I like it.
and they also highlight the power of consumer choice.
Like voting with our wallets.
Exactly.
If enough people start demanding healthier, more sustainably produced food,
Yeah.
the market will have to respond.
They believe it could transform the whole system.
So it's not just about individual choices, it's about creating a culture that values health and sustainability.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked about individual action, we've talked about systemic change,
Yeah.
but they also talk about needing a complete reset of the healthcare system.
They do.
What do they mean by that?
So Kelly means he's pretty adamant that the current system is so entrenched in this profit-driven model
Mm-hmm.
that incremental changes just won't cut it.
Wow, a complete reset. That's a pretty radical idea.
It is.
How do we even begin to wrap our heads around something like that?
Well, they suggest starting with a fundamental shift in how we view healthcare.
Okay.
Instead of seeing it as a system for treating diseases,
Mm-hmm.
we need to reframe it as a system for promoting health and well-being.
So preventing illness in the first place.
Exactly. And that means changing the incentives that drive the system.
Because right now, it seems like those incentives are all about profit,
Yeah. They argue that we need to move away from this fee-for-service model.
where doctors get paid for every test and procedure.
Right.
So instead of being rewarded for treating illness, they should be rewarded for keeping people healthy.
That's the idea.
That makes sense.
And they suggest exploring other models, like value-based care,
Okay.
where providers are incentivized to actually achieve better health outcomes for their patients.
That sounds promising, but wouldn't that require a massive restructuring of the entire system?
It would definitely involve some big changes.
Yeah.
And they acknowledge that there's going to be pushback from those who benefit from the current system.
Of course.
Those powerful industries that want to keep things the way they are.
Right.
But they argue that the current trajectory is just unsustainable. We can't keep throwing money at a system that's not working.
So a reset is not just about our health, it's about our economic well-being too.
Exactly. They believe that investing in preventative healthcare and healthy lifestyles would save money in the long run.
Okay.
A healthier population is a more productive population.
It's not just a moral imperative, it's an economic one.
And they suggest that this reframing of healthcare as an investment rather than an expense could actually get bipartisan support.
Because both sides of the aisle can agree on the importance of a healthy workforce.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say we agree that a reset is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
What concrete steps do they actually propose?
Well, they emphasize the need for strong leadership and bold action.
So it's not just about ideas, it's about political will.
Yeah. They talk about needing a leader who's willing to stand up to those powerful industries and challenge the status quo.
Right, someone who will put people over profit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they also talk about specific changes, like reforming the FDA approval process
Okay.
to make it easier for natural and preventative therapies to gain recognition.
Because right now, it seems like the system is heavily biased toward pharmaceuticals,
Yeah. They want to create a more level playing field.
where a wider range of treatment options is available.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
They also call for more funding for research on preventative health care and lifestyle interventions.
Because right now, most of that money goes to developing new drugs, right?
Yeah.
They're saying we need to shift our focus from treating disease to preventing it.
Right.
And that requires investing in research that explores the root causes of illness.
Exactly.
I'm seeing a pattern here.
Yeah.
Prevention over treatment, empowering individuals to take control of their own health, pushing for a system that prioritizes well-being over profits.
Pretty compelling vision.
It is.
And they emphasize that we need to be patient and persistent.
Yeah.
Change won't happen overnight,
Right.
but they believe it's possible
Okay.
with continued education, advocacy, and action.
I like it. So it's a long game, but it's a game worth playing. A
Absolutely.
healthcare system that prioritizes health and well-being over profits.
Mm-hmm.
That's a goal I think we can all get behind.
Yeah, and they remind us that we're not alone in this.
Right.
There are millions of people who are waking up to these realities and demanding better.
And together, we have the power to create a healthier future.
Exactly.
They also talk about the importance of personal responsibility,
Yeah.
even within this broken system.
Right, because while we're fighting for those bigger changes, we can still take steps to improve our own health.
So it's not about waiting for the system to change, it's about taking action now.
Exactly. They emphasize that we have more control over our health than we often realize.
Okay.
They encourage people to view their bodies as sacred temples, nourish them with good food, prioritize movement, and rest.
Treat your body with respect.
Right. And they also talk about connecting with nature, getting enough sunlight.
Yeah.
We're not just isolated individuals, we're part of a larger ecosystem.
Right.
And our health is connected to the health of the planet.
Taking care of ourselves also means taking care of the environment.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they encourage people to support local farmers, choose organic foods when possible, minimize exposure to toxins.
It's about making conscious choices.
Right. They also talk about the importance of mindset,
Mm.
focusing on gratitude, managing stress.
Because our mental and emotional health are just as important as our physical health.
Exactly. And they believe that by taking those steps, we can really improve our well-being, even in a system that's working against us.
So it's about empowerment,
Yeah.
taking control.
And they also talk about the importance of community.
Yeah, we're not meant to do this alone.
Right. Yeah, they emphasize that human connection, social support, that's really important for well-being.
Absolutely. And I think we all know that intuitively, right?
Right.
Like when we're going through a hard time,
Uh,
just having people there to support us can make all the difference.
Huge difference. And they encourage people to, cultivate strong relationships with their family and friends.
Yeah.
Find communities, supportive communities that they can be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
And even seek out mentors,
Yeah.
people who have, gone through similar health challenges.
Yeah. People who've been there,
Right. Yeah.
who can offer guidance and support. It's like that saying, shared joy is a double joy, shared sorrow is half a sorrow.
That's a good one.
It's true, right?
Right.
Having people to lean on can make things so much easier.
Totally. And they also talk about creating a culture of health and well-being in our communities.
Okay, so it's not just about individual choices, it's about building an environment that actually supports healthy habits.
Exactly.
What are some ways we can actually do that?
Well, they suggest things like organizing community gardens,
Oh, I love that.
starting walking groups, even hosting potlucks with healthy food.
Mm.
Making healthy choices the easy choice.
Yeah, it's about taking the pressure off individuals and creating a more supportive atmosphere for everyone.
Exactly.
I love that idea.
They believe that by working together,
Mm-hmm.
we can create a culture that actually celebrates health
Yeah.
and makes it easier for everyone to thrive.
It's about shifting our mindset from a focus on illness to a focus on wellness.
Absolutely.
And they remind us that health isn't just the absence of disease. It's about feeling energized, feeling alive, feeling connected to our bodies and our communities.
It's about vibrant well-being.
Yes, I love that. One thing that really struck me about this conversation was this idea of needing a spiritual awakening alongside this healthcare reset. What did they mean by that?
So they're suggesting that this healthcare crisis we're in,
Yeah.
it's actually a symptom of a deeper spiritual crisis.
Okay.
They say we've become disconnected from ourselves, from each other, and from the natural world.
It's like we're so busy, so caught up in the rat race, always on our devices,
Yeah,
that we've lost touch with what really matters.
totally. And that disconnection leads to this, emptiness,
Mm-hmm.
a lack of purpose,
Yeah.
this craving for something more,
Yeah.
which we often try to fill with, stuff, distractions, even medication.
It's true. Yeah. We're trying to fill that void with external things
Right.
instead of looking inward.
And it makes you wonder, if we address that spiritual need,
Mm-hmm.
would some of these other problems start to resolve themselves?
It's a good question.
It is.
Okay, so they believe we need to reconnect with that spiritual essence.
Yeah.
Remember that we're part of something bigger than ourselves.
Mhm.
But what does that actually look like? How do we do that?
I mean, it can look like a lot of different things for different people.
Okay.
It could be spending time in nature,
Mm-hmm.
engaging in spiritual practices,
Yeah.
or even just cultivating a sense of gratitude
Mm-hmm.
for the simple things in life.
Appreciating the beauty around us.
Right, remembering that life is a gift
Yeah.
and that we have a responsibility to take care of ourselves, each other, and the planet.
It's about remembering our interconnectedness.
Exactly, and they believe that spiritual awakening is really important for creating a healthcare system that's truly holistic.
Yeah, it's not just about our physical bodies, it's about our minds and spirits as well.
Exactly.
This whole deep dive has been incredibly thought-provoking. It's really challenged everything I thought I knew about healthcare. I'm feeling, honestly, a mix of emotions right now.
Yeah.
I'm alarmed by the state of our current system,
Yeah.
but also I'm kind of inspired by the possibility of creating something better.
Me too. Me too. And I think Callie and Dr. Casey means they've given us a lot to think about,
Yeah.
both in terms of what we can do individually
Mm-hmm.
and how we can push for those bigger changes.
Yeah.
But most importantly, They've reminded us that we have the power to make a difference.
Absolutely. They've given us a roadmap for reclaiming our health, our agency, and ultimately our future.
I love that.
So to everyone listening out there, take this information and run with it.
Yeah.
Do your own research, connect with like-minded people,
Mm.
and make your voices heard.
Make a difference.
Because the future of healthcare is in our hands.
It really is.
And together,
Yeah.
we can create a system that truly serves the needs of the people.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. It's been a pleasure.
This is just the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah, keep exploring,
Keep questioning
keep learning.
and keep fighting for a healthier future.
Until next time, stay curious.
And stay well.